Hey guys, did you know that I have a Patreon where you can support me plus get awesome rewards and lots of exclusive videos just for patrons? Or if you're thinking, but Julian, I want to get more bang for my buck, then you can head on over to my Redbubble, where you will find all kinds of interesting designs with new ones appearing regularly. Check this one out. And now, enjoy the video you're about to watch. Hey everyone, it's me, Julian Greystoke. Today I am wearing my Normandy vs. the Reapers shirt. The Reapers are a little hard to see against the black shirt, but trust me, they're there. Like Commander Shepard, I assure you that the Reapers are there. Today we are going to be doing a book review of a book called Gemina, which is the second in the Illuminae Files series. I have a review of the first book. Please go check that out on my channel if you're interested. But today we are talking about the second book. I liked the first book well enough. I didn't love it, but I liked it enough that I was like, you know what, I'll read the second one. I don't 100% remember the synopsis of this book. Some Candy is going to help me read it from Goodreads. Wake up, Candy. Wake up. Wake up, girl. Jane is here, by the way, just helping me by being in my way. Gemina. Synopsis from Goodreads says, moving to a space station at the edge of the galaxy was always going to be the death of Hannah's social life. Nobody said it might actually get her killed. The sci-fi saga that began with the breakout bestseller Illuminae continues aboard the jump station Heimdall, where two new characters will confront the next wave of the Baytech assaults. Hannah is the station captain's pampered daughter, Nick the reluctant member of a notorious crime family. But while the pair are struggling with the realities of life aboard the galaxy's most boring space station, little do they know that Katie Grant and the Hypatia are headed right toward the Heimdall, carrying news of the Kurzena? I don't remember how to pronounce that, invasion. When an elite Baytech strike team invades the station, Hannah and Nick are thrown together to defend their home. But alien predators are picking off the station residents one by one, and a malfunction in the station's wormhole means the space-time continuum might be ripped in two before dinner. Soon, Hannah and Nick aren't just fighting for their survival. The fate of everyone in the Hypatia, and possibly the known universe, is in their hands. But relax, they've totally got this. They hope. So, as is made obvious by the synopsis, this book is a continuation pretty much right after the first book, because the ship that we were on mostly in the first book is headed for this station that we've got in the second book, that the second book is taking place at. The main characters of the previous book were originally from a mining colony that was engaging in an illegal mine operation, and that colony was ruthlessly destroyed by this evil corporation, Baytech Industries. Ooh, so evil. And now the escapees from that illegal mining operation are trying to get to a space station, the Heimdall station, to tell people what is going on. So the tension in the first book ramped up right away. It did such a good job of like getting you going and being like, this is the danger, and the danger stayed present through the whole book, and I really liked that about the first book. This one took a lot longer to get going, which I mean, I guess if you're writing a second book you can do, because you already know it's going to be published, so you can take a bit longer, but I didn't love the sort of not really knowing what the stakes were for a long time, especially in a book coming off of the first one that was like so tense all the time. It was letting you get to know the characters, which would be great if I liked the characters, which I do not. We'll get to that a little bit more later. Or I guess we'll get to talking about the characters right now, because that's my next note. Haha, look ahead in your notes, Julian. The characters in the first book gave us so many different POVs to look at. Now, if you're familiar with these books, you know that they have a non-traditional style. They're mostly like logs and messages that characters send back and forth and that kind of thing, and some like video footage. So you really get into the characters' heads and you really get a feel for their different voices. And they even have more different voices if you're listening to the audio version, which are full cast audio, and they also had some sound effects and stuff like that. So definitely worth a listen. But in this one there were fewer characters, and so if you didn't like the characters that you were following, there's never going to be another character that came along to be like, okay, well I like this one. I especially liked a lot of the side characters in the first book, and this one really didn't have that many side characters for us to follow, so I was just kind of following these bland, cliched teenagers, and I didn't like any of them, except for like the one who's like the girl in the chair, who's just kind of a sweetie pie, and it's hard not to at least not hate her. All of the characters in this book especially seem to have a very similar voice. All of their jokes are the same. There's never a character where you're like, oh, he's gonna tell this kind of joke and she's gonna tell this kind of joke. They have differences of humor. They're all the same, and they all are sexual jokes. Like, sexual innuendos is this book's bread and butter, and I don't really understand why, but maybe it's just because the characters are teenagers and the author thinks that teenagers only make sexual innuendo jokes, which I mean they do make a lot of, but not all of them and not the same kind. So one of the things that both of these books do is they have, you know, scenes that were like taken by a camera at some point in like the ship, because the overall framing of all these books is a trial that's going on to try and figure out what happened to these people. And so they have transcripts of these video feeds, and the transcripts are read by this character who in the first book I kind of liked. Like, some people found him annoying in the first book because he adds his own flourishes, he adds his own thoughts, he speculates about what the characters might be thinking and feeling as he watches them. And there weren't very much of that in the first book, and this book there is a lot of that, and he goes from being like a kind of his own character and just kind of adding what he thinks characters are thinking and feeling to like somehow omnisciently knowing what these characters are thinking and feeling. He goes from being a guy who's watching them to a guy who's somehow just like a narrator, like as though he was writing the book. It's explaining what the characters are thinking, feeling, all of that stuff, and I hated it. I hated it. I hated him. I really wished almost that we were just having like a robot read these and it was just giving us what it saw, because this guy was getting way too much into telling us what these characters were thinking and feeling for a dude who was just supposed to be watching them on camera. Also, I had the question, how is he not fired? Because like he's not doing a good job of just calmly telling the court what he saw on the screen. I'm not a fan of the relationship. It's pretty standard, sort of the good girl, bad boy relationship, where of course the bad boy abuses the good girl and then we find out he has a heart of gold. And if you're into that kind of archetype and you don't care that this book doesn't really deviate from it in any meaningful way, then this book might be a lot more enjoyable to you. But that's not an archetype that I'm into at all, really. I mean, I like hate to love, but the whole bad boy mistreats and makes fun of girl for a while until he does something sweet for her, I'm just not into it. In the previous book, there were space zombies, which I was on board for. I love zombies, you guys. I know they're out of fashion, and I don't give a fuck. I love zombie stories. I loved them before they were popular. I loved them while they were popular. And I love them now that they're not popular anymore. And in this book, there is a space parasite as our sort of inscrutable secondary bad guy. And while the parasite is cool and gross, I didn't like it as much as the zombies, and B, whenever it was described, I kept thinking of this Pokemon, and that didn't help. Because that's like what it looked like in my head every time it was described. And that didn't make it scary. I'll just read you what I wrote here. Allow this book to tell you how great the MC is. Impossibly hot, super good at martial arts, perfect and rich, but not a snob. That's just, if that entices you, then this book might be for you, but I am not into it. I'm not into these perfect teenagers. I know that it's wish fulfillment. I know that it's an archetype, but I'm over it. People have flaws, goram it. The main bad guy in the story has the codename Cerberus, which of course made me picture Cerberus from Mass Effect. And I kept thinking of him as the Elusive Man, except for he's nothing like the Elusive Man. And again, that association ruined it a little bit for me. That's my own fault that I visualize a Pokemon and Cerberus. But if you are gonna have your space bad guy named Cerberus, maybe you should do a little bit of research beforehand about other space bad guys who might be named Cerberus, and maybe just name him something else. It's like naming every other ship Icarus. It's done. It's been done. Also, the villain in this is the weakest link. He is such a shitty villain. His plan is terrible and executed badly, and I didn't feel threatened by him or his people at all. They're bad at their jobs. The only point of view that I consistently enjoyed was that of Aiden, who is the crazy AI from the previous book. Now, there were some things that I didn't like about what they did with his character in the previous book, but they weren't really present in this one, so I enjoyed his little, like, asides that he would have, because you all know that I love, like, AIs and robots and that kind of thing, so that was enjoyable, but there wasn't much of it, and it wasn't enough to sustain me through this book. The climax of this book was so bonkers. You know how in fantasy and sometimes in sci-fi, they'll just do whatever, because it's like, oh, it's magic, or oh, it's space magic, it's science. This book went there. Like, this book just went off the rails, balls to the wall. I don't think that's how you science. Crazy times. And the main character has a kung fu fight at one point. I was sitting here listening to it like, what the fuck is happening? Before this book felt like it could actually be something that was happening. Yeah, sure, things are far-fetched and there's space parasites inside of cows in space and whatever. I was fine. And then the ending happened and I was like, nope. What is this? What is this? It's bonkers. This author loves a death fake out, and I'm over it. You guys know that I am one of the few people on the planet, I think, who doesn't like death fake outs. Kill a character or don't kill a character. Don't tell me that character is dead and then bring them back. Apparently I'm wrong for thinking this because everyone's always in a hurry to correct me and be like, oh, but you get the emotion and then the character comes back, and oh, but if you do this, then when a character dies, it's so much more meaningful. You know what's meaningful? Killing a character and leaving them dead to begin with. Like, don't even, like, you don't have to fake kill 3 characters just so I'll care about the real death of one. Real kill those 3 characters and I'll care about it. Because they're dead. This has been my death fake-out rant. Be assured that if you like death fake-outs, so does this author. I wrote the buzzword for this book is convenient. Because things just happen. Things just happen. Don't come into this book looking for explanations. If you like bonkers, if you like things that can just happen, if you like random kung fu battles, this is the book for you. And the last note I have is that this book read a lot more like it wanted to be an ordinary, like, normal narrative than the previous one did. The previous one leaned really heavily on that original, like, style that it was going for in the form of all of these, like, messages back and forth and these little excerpts and these little blips from all these different characters. This one limited the characters. It had a lot more of just a guy telling you what was happening in the story, and so it felt like the author was leaning back from that really cool, like, style that they were doing in the first one. And I don't know what the third one does because I'm probably not going to read it because I hated this. I was frustrated and confused. So, yes, those are my thoughts on Gemina. I know it's a very popular book. If the third book kind of comes back to being more like the first book, let me know in the comments because then I might read it. But if the third book doubles down on the level of bonkers and, like, no sense making and boring cliche characters that the second book leaned on, I'm not there for it, so. But what did you think? Did you guys read Gemina? Did you like it? You probably did because everybody liked Gemina. Except Jane. Because he's a cat and he didn't read it. Remember, everyone, that I post new videos Mondays and Fridays. All the links to my social media are in the doobly-doo for ease of your clicking. If you liked what you saw here and you want to see more reviews that get down and nitty-gritty and aren't afraid to just shout at books, then I have a lot more content on my channel. I've been doing this for a while. And if you want to see this stuff look in even higher quality, then you can support me on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, all my donations go towards getting me better equipment, plus they get you exclusive content that is not seen here on my normal channel, so go check that out. And I will see you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye! I was so mad. I cross out books that I'm finished with reviewing in my notebook, and I was so mad that I actually, like, poked a hole in the page crossing out Gemina. Hey everybody, it is shout out time again. Time to shout out to my patrons, Amanda, Ashley, Celia, Kim, Lisa, Ramona, Sabby Panda, and Sarah. And if you want to be great like these amazing people, then become my patron over on Patreon.